It's going to take you, Mr. President, working with Republicans and Democrats to get this done. It's not going to be done on Twitter, by tweeting. It's going to be done by talking and understanding.
You know, I was out yesterday, so I thought I avoided going back to the House and this den of vulgarity. But here it is. It's not going away. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina with some sharp words for President Trump while standing by his story about the president using crude language at last week's immigration meeting with several lawmakers. The senator told a local paper, quote, "My memory hasn't evolved, and I know what was said, and I know what I said." Graham says he responded to the president's remarks by telling him, quote, "America is an idea, not a race." At the same time, the Washington Post reports lawmakers were on the brink of an immigration deal with the president, but all the progress vanished when the president erupted at that meeting last Thursday, leaving several lawmakers confused and perplexed. Joining me now, Bloomberg News White House reporter Shannon Pettypiece and host of Make It Plain on Sirius XM's Progress Channel 127, Reverend Mark Thompson. Shannon, to you first. The president has continued to tweet about this, denying he said S-hole countries. And we've had a few days to let this thing sink in. What is the damage assessment of his comments? Because one could put the president aside and say, this is Donald Trump. We don't like it. We're disgusted by it. But let's get back to policy. But then I think just last week, someone said to me, you should interview David Perdue. You would really like him, Stephanie. Former business guy, really reasonable. Tom Cotton, strong, smart, young guy. I always see Dan Senor saying great things about him. And now here's these two guys, 24 hours after the meeting. I do not recall. That's nonsense. And then David Perdue takes it one step further, then saying, no, it didn't happen at all. What gives?
I think you're absolutely right, Steph. Not only were there these comments made that completely derailed these talks of negotiation, but yeah, the trust gets lost between these members who are trying to work out a deal because now they are sort of divided amongst themselves over how they characterize this meeting. Like so much of this presidency, these comments made were not helpful. And if there is any deal, it will come in spite of the president. And it makes this bipartisan meeting just 8 days ago that was televised really seem like a fever dream at this point. We have moved so far away, and the president's doing nothing at all at this point to try and bring Democrats and Republicans back to the table.
Mark, the president isn't just tweeting. I want to share what he said on Sunday. Take a look.
No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you. Did you see what various senators in the room said about my comments? They weren't made.
The least racist person ever interviewed, President Trump, who is the commander-in-chief of the birtherism idea. What's your take?
We've heard that before. Thank you for having me, by the way. We've heard that before. I'm the least racist. But we know that's not true. Who even talks that way? I'm beginning to think, though, because I don't think we should be lazy about this. We should apply the lessons Dr. King taught us even the day after his birthday. We all think he just gave one speech, I Have a Dream, but when he spoke at the Montgomery State Capitol after the March from Selma to Montgomery, he talked about how Jim Crow was used to keep black and white during Reconstruction from coming together. The whites gave, he said, African Americans Jesus, and gave whites, the Southern aristocracy gave whites Jim Crow. So when I believe he said, when the white man's wrinkled belly could not afford to pay for food to feed it, he ate Jim Crow, a psychological bird that at least told him as bad off as he was as a white man, he was still better off as a black man. And so Trump plays those cards, and it may be even to sabotage this whole deal because he's sending a message to that base, to his base, that this is what I really think about the people we're discussing, working out a deal for, providing DACA for, and what have you. And so I don't know that this was something that was not very, very unintentional, because look where we are. We're just about at a standstill in the whole negotiation. I believe we learned from Dr. King still that this is something Trump did. He did intentionally, and this is precisely what racists do. Not to mention the fact, it takes an a-hole to know what an s-hole is.
Oh, my goodness. Well, to your point that could this be intentional in President Trump's base, President Trump's base didn't like that bipartisan immigration meeting he had last week, where he said to Dianne Feinstein, a clean DACA bill, I could sign that, because remember, that comment didn't make it into the transcript. Shannon, to Mark's point about Martin Luther King also talked about it's not just remembering what your enemies said, it's what your friends didn't, the silence of your friends. So I want to speak about the president's administration and the position he has put them in. Only one administration official has had to speak publicly, and that's Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. She's going to be testifying at a Senate Judiciary Oversight Committee today. And I want to share what she said on CBS this morning, because it seemed like very careful wording. The president has put her in quite a position.
I have no problem repeating what I've said. I just don't. That's not a word that I remember being used. It was very impassioned. People on all sides feel very strongly about this issue, frankly, as well as they should. There were a lot of conversations happening at the same time. That's not a particular phrase that I heard.
Right. So we're back to this argument over semantics almost. But the sentiment, no one is disputing. You could have said from poor countries, from low income countries. But the sentiment still remains that you don't want people coming to this country for humanitarian reasons, or you don't think there is a merit based reason why someone from a low income developing country would be coming to the U.S. That's really at the heart of this debate that so many Democrats have an issue with here. And it also shouldn't be surprising, because as President Trump called for a ban on people coming from Muslim countries or countries with majority Muslim population. So this is obviously not the first time he has singled out a race, an ethnic group, a religion, and saying that he doesn't want them to come to the country. So she will be testifying. I think we'll probably hear similar remarks. Of course, she is not a seasoned expert at these testimonies, so there could be fireworks. It could be very interesting. I'll certainly be watching. Mark,
put semantics and word choice aside. He doesn't want people from black countries if he's saying bring them on from Europe and not from those countries.
Right. No, that's exactly what he's saying. And what is the definition of an S-hole country? We know none of us are from S-hole countries. These are countries, of course, with very, very rich cultures. We've talked about here on this air before. But what is the definition of an S-hole country? Does it contain people who are tired or poor or huddled masses yearning to breathe free? Is that what is the qualification? Because if that's what he means, that's the same thing. Everyone wants a better life. That's what the Statue of Liberty cries out. And I just want to reiterate again, particularly with regards to Haiti, to the extent that Haiti is suffering is partially his fault. One of the dictators, Papa Doc's son, Baby Doc Duvalier, laundered money through Trump Tower. He gave Trump $500,000 of the Haitian people's money for a condominium, because that's what people did back then. We could go and launder our money, Stephanie, by getting a condo at Trump Tower. I think probably still can. Donald Trump's actual signature is on the deed, the lease to Baby Doc Duvalier. So he is at least partially responsible for $500,000 of the Haitian people's money foregone. And we know how they suffered under the Duvalier regime. So it's particularly blasphemous for him to talk about the Haitian people being from an S-hole country.
All right. Well, Mark, Shannon, NBC has not yet confirmed that report, but we know whether it is this example or another, the Haitian people have suffered under corrupt governments, under coups, under natural disasters, suffered in a way that most of us can't even imagine. Thank you both for this conversation.